And all of that will be coming out October 29th, I want to say. I'll be sure to edit somewhere on the screen the day the video will be released. Whoops. Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of me making my Halloween costume, aka my Lydia wedding dress. In part 1 I showed you how I made the skirt, and in this part I will be showing you how I made the rest of the costume, like the bodice. So let's get started. First up is patterning. I'm starting off with a base pattern from Mood Fabrics. This is the birch dress pattern, and I'll add a link to it down in the description. Since this pattern is of a dress and not a bodice, I did have to make a few changes, mainly to the length of the pattern, but in addition, I added princess seams to the front pattern piece. Afterwards, I made a quick mock-up, just because I truly didn't want to mess up. I do want you to keep this clip in mind for later in this video. It is important. Okay. For whatever reason, from the waist up, I kind of look like a little boy from like the 1920s that works on a farm. That wasn't my original intention for this outfit, but I'll make it work. So, funny enough, not very funny, and I don't think very surprising to many, I procrastinated maybe a little too much, and now I have about 2, possibly 3 days to finish this whole entire costume. The thing is, what you can see on my dress form next to me is all I have done for the bodice. I have to make the entire bodice in about 2.5 days. This will be interesting. I definitely think it's doable. I don't think it's too out of field of an idea. I think it's about time we get started. And by we, I mean I. So, let I get started. But once I was happy with how the mock-up looked, it was on to the actual thing. Starting with cutting everything out, including the sleeves, which I didn't include in the mock-up just because it's sleeves. Very simple, and it takes a lot of fabric. But even though I didn't include it in the mock-up, I'm cutting them out now. I didn't like the cuffs included in the original dress pattern, so I went ahead and made my own, which I did by measuring my wrist to get the length of the cuff, multiplied my desired width by 2 so that when I folded the rectangle in half, it makes the perfect cuff. Then everything was sewed together. And good morning. Don't mind my hair, I don't know what it's doing and I could care less about it. But this is the progress I made on the bodice yesterday. Definitely not as much as I wanted to get done, but it's together at least. The thing is, I ran into an issue. Now class, do you remember what I told you at the beginning of the video? And that is this bit. As you can see, this goes really high up. And apparently something I forgot to write down with my mock-up is this back panel and this bit needed to be brought down. But because I didn't write it down, I of course forgot. So now I'm left with this. And I think the most practical solution would be just to seam rip it apart, redo the back panels and everything like that, and try it again. However, I don't have the motivation or time for that. So my 5-minute solution is just cutting out pieces of fabric and just sewing it on. I deeply apologize to the sewing masters for the sin that I have committed today, but I was short on time and had to be done. So, anyways, in my original design, I wanted the top piece to look like a spider web instead of an upside down triangle. So my method of doing this was drawing out my design on both the front and the back pieces, pinning the mesh fabric directly on top of that, cutting it out, and stitching everything down directly on the dress. Not something I normally do, mind you, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Between steps, I made sure to quickly iron any seams if needed and suggest you do the same. It truly makes a difference and you will thank yourself later. I also added a collar to the top, which was included in the pattern, so that's just what I used. Now onto one of my favorite parts of the dress, all the little trims and ribbons. Originally I was going to add even more ribbons at the top piece of the bodice, just to make it look more like a spiderweb, but the ribbon I was using wasn't very flexible and it honestly wasn't turning out the way that I wanted it to, so after a few tries I just gave up on the spiderweb idea and left it as stripes. But I think it worked out better that way in the end, so I'm not mad. Before continuing with all the details, I went ahead and finished the back of the bodice by adding 2 boning channels and a whole bunch of grommets. And I also went ahead and dyed some fabric I had lying around red for her veil. Back to the dress. I added this lace around the edge where the mesh meets the satin to help hide the seam and to add a color that wasn't red before I added the little gathered layers Lydia has on her dress. Speaking of which, I started by measuring the length that I would need and multiplied that by 2 and sewed that all down underneath the lace. I swear to God, if I ever have to gather any more lace in the future, I will scream. I never want to look at tulle ever again. Anyways, I only added 1 layer of tulle to the bodice purely because I didn't want to add a 2nd or 3rd layer. But I also finished the bottom of the bodice, which I did by quickly making some bias tape, which you can simply do by cutting out a band of fabric on its bias, aka diagonally, ironing the whole band, and sewing that down to the bodice. That was so many bees! Oh my god! Then the final thing to do was to actually finish the skirt. Now here's where I must confess something else. In the first video of me making this dress, and I'm sure some of you noticed this, but that skirt is nowhere near finished. Almost all the layers were only pinned to the lining of the skirt, and I apologize for deceiving you, but hey, now both the skirt and the bodice are finished, but we still have more work to do. So, to make her bouquet, I found this very cheap spring fake flower bouquet, and on the flowers that I didn't think fit Lydia's aesthetic, aka like the pink and the white ones, I just painted over them with some black spray paint and acrylic paint. I had also styled an old wig and pinned together the veil, however, I apparently didn't film that bit, but with that, was done, and then I could live peacefully. I'm going to try and be the most optimistic I've ever been in one of my videos because I don't want to make it seem like I only criticize myself. Okay, I'm very happy to be done with this dress. This dress caused me a lot of stress, especially that skirt. That's not criticism, that is just honesty. So I am very happy to be done with it, but I am happy with how it looks. There are a couple of things in my original design that just didn't end up in the final product, but that's honestly completely fine. It's things that I can live with, and who knows, maybe in the future I can revamp this cosplay, you know? Costume, technically, if I'm wearing this on Halloween. But yeah, like overall, it's very pleasing to know that like it's finished. Like everything is 100% complete. Like I have done everything. There's not some like hidden thing that like my mind has to like worry about, because it's like, oh, it's that one thing with the dress that you haven't gotten to yet. Again, this dress was just very stressful on me. Speaking of which, that skirt, it was so like, it was very taxing on both me mentally and physically. Like I just did not want to do it at all. And I think one reason why was because I wasn't seeing progress done on the skirt like I was on the bodice. Like when it came to the bodice and I added like the sleeves or something, I could see that progress and that kept me motivated to finish it. However, when it came to the skirt, when I sewed down one layer, I sewed down one of 8 layers and I can't really see that progress. I don't know what I'm saying. It was just very frustrating, but now I have a huge skirt. So that's very cool. I honestly don't know what else to talk about when I'm not criticizing myself. I'm gonna work on that. Do I already have plans for next Halloween? Yes, absolutely. I think I've already finalized that project. I don't know, I'm just overall excited. I'm very pleased with this dress and I'm very excited for next year. I hope you guys are as well. I did really try with YouTube this Halloween just because I know like cosplay kind of goes into costumes and like SFX makeup is like, oh, spooky, because like spooky season. So I don't think I have anything else that I really want to talk about. If you watched this all the way through or you've made it to this point, thank you so much. Oh my god. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like or a comment and maybe think about subscribing. I'm truly going to try and stick to weekly uploads and I hope you all enjoy your Halloween. So now I have to figure out how I'm going to store this dress. Fun.